Yo, real quick, this is post editing, post everything, Paco. Um, this episode ended up being over 2 hours long, including like cutting out some parts to try and trim some time. So, what's going to happen is we're going to split this episode into two parts, and one's going to go out either today or Friday, and then the other part will come the day after. So, it'll be split where the interviews are part one, and then the the segment where we incorporate all the tiers will be part two. So be sure to look out for that. It should be an hour and 15 minutes, and then an hour episode or consecutive episodes. So just want to give that quick disclaimer. But see you in the pod. VDC, welcome back to another installment of the VDC podcast. What is this, episode 4 now?
Yeah.
We are 3 episodes past the original podcast. Let's go, boys. But we got a jam-packed schedule for you today. But first off, I'm here with my main man.
Remy with the Hemi. #bang. What's up, everybody? We're back again. We've got a really interesting podcast. I'm kind of curious to hear from, one of our guests in particular's answers. Obviously, Paco will get more into the agenda of, what we got cooking for you today. But, in my opinion, another goated podcast on the way with some goated people.
Absolutely.
And take it away, Paco. What can we expect today?
Yeah, so postseason coming up for some has already started. Prospect, Mythic, congrats to those teams who have already made it. But we got postseason focus. We got later in the episode postseason predictions for each tier. Now, like I said, Prospect and Mythic already started, so I guess for those, it's just going to be the 1-2. But for everybody else, top 6 to make playoffs and who are grand finals winners are going to be coming up. Obviously, you got your podcast picks, but the other postseason upcoming segment on the podcast, we've got 2 former winners. One from Apprentice, one from Expert. Who do we got from Apprentice?
I mean, some would argue that he's the hero of the tier. Some would argue that this is his house.
Maybe he's the
Some would
7th
argue
best duelist?
some would argue that he kicked our ass last year and 3-0'd us in the finals. Some would argue if you snap, he'll appear. Welcome in, Mr. VeeKay. How are you today, sir?
Hello, hello. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me on Match Point here for VDC. I'm very excited to be here. And honestly, I love what you guys have been doing so far this season. And honestly, again, just super honored to be here.
I'm honored to have you.
Yeah, we're honored to be in your presence, VeeKay, really. I mean,
The championship aura.
Oh man. That still sounds surreal to hear, that we're defending champions, even though it's been almost 5 months since that's happened or something like that. So it's been a minute, but yeah, I still every time I see that little trophy on the Discord, I get a little tear comes to my eye.
W's in the chat.
yeah, it feels even better to hear future champion whenever you talk about LG, but we'll get into that later in the
We'll get to that-
podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks again for your time, VeeKay, and I'm really curious to hear some of these answers from your point of view, obviously, since we played you last year in the finals when you guys came back from that first game in what was it, 9-3 LG
It was a
fashion.
9-3. Yeah.
LG fashion, and we kept the trend rolling this year so far, so nothing's
I love
changed,
it.
it appears, But kind of, last season, obviously, you have kind of that killer mentality, the winner mentality. A few of people throughout the league do. Did you go into last season expecting a trophy, or did you know that it was probably going to be there's going to be a lot of people doubting us, there's going to be a lot of, people not expecting it? I mean, was in your heart, was it we're winning this shit easy, or was it one of those things where it's a grind of a process to get to be able to say that you're the champion?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest with you, it was kind of a back and forth mentality. I knew in my heart we were going to playoffs regardless. I knew that was going to happen, especially with the situation that happened the season before of needing to have a sub for our quarterfinal game, and then just getting wiped. So I knew that there was some vengeance that we were kind of pushing for to kind of rebuild the team around getting to playoffs. And then when we made playoffs and we saw that we were playing against OS, we were like, okay, this is good because we have the ultimate key to OS, which is Legend at the time. And I was like, okay, we can at least get to finals. We can at least get to finals, and then once we get into finals, we'll give it our all. We'll do whatever we can. And then when we saw LG upset L7, we were like, this is going to be a difficult match. Like if LG has, because we were preparing for like no offense to LG at all, but we were preparing for L7. And then when L7 fell to LG, we were like, wait a minute. We had to go all the way back to the drawing boards. Like we had to redo some of our game plans, and we were preparing for a really good match. But on the flip side, Karan, myself, Jam, Legend, Frey, we are like different animals when it comes to postseasons. Not dropping a single map last season in playoffs. So, I guess the expectation wasn't a trophy per se, but at least to get to finals.
I like that. Honestly, we were rooting for you guys to win because we thought we didn't think we could beat OS. So we were like, oh my god, wait, we have a chance.
Or L7,
just for us to get 3-0'd.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tough one. It was a fun match though in general. I had a lot of fun. I mean, like just making it to grand finals in the first season, like for almost our entire team, like that no one thought. I mean, we barely made it into playoffs. Like it was the final match day. We had to win one match of our two maps, obviously, to even make it in, like to secure our spot. So there's a lot of pressure on us to even make it in, and then L7 didn't clear any corners. and one sheriff round later they were tilted in Lotus, and then we made it to grand finals.
Yeah, and I think that played in your favor though a little bit, because a lot of people going into last season didn't really know like who you guys were as a squad. I mean, I think you only had Uklar returning. I think the rest of you were 4 rookies at that time, or maybe not 4 rookies, but 4 new to the org. And I think that actually helped you in a way, because I think L7 may have underestimated you a bit. Maybe thought they were trying to look forward ahead. I don't know. I don't want to speak on their behalf. But I think that really worked in your favor. And I think a lot of people look at the KC 3-0, but in reality they were all close matches. You had the OT, and then I think differential. Yeah, it was like the KC OT 14-12, and then I think it was 13-10, and then 13-11 or 13-10 again. Yeah, so you're right. Something very close. So
yeah, I think there's like a lot to say about that too, though. I feel like barely getting in the playoffs, like I feel like if you have like certain people on your squad, like with certain mentalities, like it's the best place to almost be, because you have nothing to lose. If you go out and you get 2-0'd first round, so what? You're the last seed. But if you go out there and give them a first good map, like then there's a lot of pressure on that other team. Yeah, I mean, so anybody out there that's obviously fighting later on in the podcast to make it in, we're one of those teams. Don't feel discouraged just because you're the 6th team to make it in, because all the other teams that don't make it in wish that they were the 6th team that
just hope
made
that you
it
don't
in.
play against KC.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
We're the only ones who are allowed to beat them.
True.
But yeah, so you mentioned it was okay, had to go to the drawing board, but and earlier you were saying like every time I see that crown you get kind of sentimental about it. So how did you feel after winning? Like immediately after winning that final round, like was it like how did everybody in the team react?
Yeah,
just not just you.
So it's actually kind of funny when we when we were doing our warm-ups, we were just kind of like just shooting the shit, and we were all like, Legend and I said, yo, if we win, we actually might cry. We actually might cry because Legend and I both have been here since season one. We both had very big ups and very big downs throughout the league, and the one thing that always eluded us was the trophy, was lifting the trophy, you know. And when we got into map 3, there was a little bit of, you know, fatigue, a little bit of exhaustion there, and that was kind of like our motivation to keep going. Was just like, listen, like, we're gonna make mistakes in this map. I think we all are. It's you know, hour 3 because all the maps went super long. It's like hour 3 of a potential 6-hour stream. Like, we're only halfway there potentially. Like, we had to just stay locked in. And when that so the final round that you talked about was, I was going to op against you guys and dashed forward and went right into all 5 of you, and I was like, we're going into OT again. Like, I don't know if I have the mental capacity to OT. And, you know, fortunately my team was able to somehow scourge the rounds. If you go back and listen to the casting, it was like a really scrappy round. And I'll
Almost
just
clutched
never.
it.
Yeah, you did. And I'll just never forget, like, I was sitting there like this because I was tilted. And then as the trade started coming in, the tick started coming in, I like leaned forward a little bit. And when the last kill came in, we all were like, yeah, like hands were in my head, and all. It was just, it was crazy. It was crazy. It felt so good. And then, you know, after the games, we all calmed down a little bit. We cracked some celebratory adult beverages and had a fun night afterwards. So, you know, it was the team was so great. Shout out to Frey, Jam, Legend, and Civic. You know, Legend and Frey are missed to this day, but we replaced them with very capable hands, I think. So
I could say that that is probably the case, being that you are currently set to make the playoffs. So, do you think you're capable of going back to back?
yeah, absolutely. So if you would have asked me about this season, about if we were expecting to get a trophy, 1000%. We're trying to do something that only one org has done before, and that's to go back to back.
OS Mythic.
Yeah, shout out OS Mythic.
Shout out
History of the Orgs.
Coming soon to a theater near you. But no, so we're trying to absolutely go back to back. There has been some, I don't want to say growing pains, but there has been some adjustment that needing to be happening. So like, you know, I'm not the primary duelist anymore. Like that Trico took over that, and you know, she's been killing it. Like, seriously, Trico has surprised me so much this season. We already knew that she was such a solid player, but you know, to see her level up in the way that she has been incredible. And then I don't think anyone expected the season that Otter's having to be had by her, because again, incredible player, but she has been, like, and no disrespect to players in Apprentice, but she comes up from Prospect and then makes half of Apprentice look silly, and it's so great to see. And I think the team has gone even stronger. We did add Serb to the team as well. He's been a great addition while Civic is on holiday. Hi Civic, I hope you're enjoying this while sipping a pina colada. But you know, the team's been growing. We all, you know, have our moments where we kind of lose our heads a little bit, but you know, what's really good about this team is that we're able to like recollect after the match day and just reflect and then be like, okay, listen, like, yeah, here's what we screwed up on. Let's not make that mistake again, and let's go out and have fun and do our thing. And I think that's really important for a team to have that caliber of going back to back.
Yeah, and speaking of Otter too, I mean, we all saw match day 1. And we're all like, okay, yeah, this is kind of what we expected from a tier minimum. It was not pretty, to say the least. But to see, you know, me getting Ferrari peaked and absolutely shit on by Otter, like now, it's crazy. And I think that is a testament to KC, and kind of that team environment, because it, you know, if it's the wrong team and my teammate drops 2 kills on a map on the first match day, I am, you know, like not happy.
Reassessing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're only as good as your worst player, and so like, you know, it's like true with anything, like sports, whatever it is. Like, you're only as good as your worst player. and like I think KC has like the vibes and just like the personalities to help like empower the people that maybe are mentally
Yeah.
struggling a little bit. And I think like Otter's put in a lot of work like to get to that
Yeah,
point that helps, like lift up players like VeeKay and Trico and make them look even better on a supporting role. And I think that's kind of what you see now is like Otter's fragging out because Otter's got a lot of confidence finally. And, like when you get confidence at the right time of the year, like it's really dangerous. I mean, so it's pretty crazy to see the transition from then until now. I mean,
right.
probably my pick would probably for most improved player of the year if it
Yeah.
includes people that moved up from another tier. I don't know if that award is people that were in the tier last year that improved or if it's people that came from or so on and so forth. But my opinion for like this year at least, I think Otter's probably the most improved player of the year by far, just because I mean I won't even lie. I'm like really good friends with VK, and like I would even message him and be like, "Dude, what do you think?" And he's like, "It's gonna be a rough one this year potentially." And then looking back on it now, it's like I thought my year was gonna be a lot easier than it was, and
Yeah.
then obviously we had our shortcoming too. So um,
And to preface it's gonna be a rough one this season. I was referring to the MMR caps and who we could
uh-huh,
pick up. I'm putting that
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
uh-huh.
there. All right. So, but
You got
no,
to stir the pot a little bit though. That's what we do on the pod.
but no, I do agree that she definitely has been one of the most improved. I mean, like you said, you dropping the 2 kills from first match day to then 4v1 or a 1v4 clutch. I forget who that was against, but a 1v4 clutch on bind was like it happened and it was on stream. It was against PN. It was against PN. And it happened. And I wish I was streaming my point of view because we all just stopped and we were just like it was insane. Insane. So shout out Otter.
Mhm. Yeah, and kind of going back to the playoffs, obviously LG's first time, we were thrown into the gauntlet pretty much with Uklar kind of leading the reins of the sled. You guys have a veteran squad that's been around for quite some time in the league. He's played many playoff matches. Um, for those new players out here that had the potential to be playing in the playoffs, like what is the difference in your opinion between kind of the playoff matches versus the regular season
Mm.
matches? What are some of the things that you've just kind of learned over your years of playing in the playoffs that maybe a new player would be like, gives them kind of what to expect, or maybe somebody that wants to be in the playoffs, but maybe
Yeah.
just didn't have that lucky of a season this season?
Yeah, no, for sure. So actually, I might have an answer that might surprise a lot of people, and I actually think that there's more stress on regular season games than there is playoff games. And the reason why I say that is when you have, especially in Apprentice, you have constant rankings coming out. You have constant power rankings, team placements, top 50 lists, whatever coming out. Like you see that and you kind of internalize, like no matter where you're at, like you're always going to be like, okay, I need to push myself to be better because if I'm, number, I don't know, I'm just going to make a random number up. If you're that number, please don't take offense to
Number
it. But like,
seven.
if you're number 7, and I think that's kind of all right. Yeah, well, let's use that. Let's use that. If you're number 7, like I was last season in the duelist tier, 7 out of 10, that motivates you, but also it adds a little bit of a pressure because you want to perform better to prove people wrong, right? However, when you're playing in playoffs, the only people that you're performing for is for you and your team because nothing else matters. You lose, you're done. You win, you go on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no pressure of, okay, if we drop one map tonight, we might drop down out of playoff contention. Like, so that's why I think that the pressure might be a little bit higher during the regular season. And then the other thing is like, when you get to playoffs, I automatically see like, okay, if you get to playoffs, that's a successful season. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mhm.
And you can't be disappointed if, like if OS at 1 and KC at 2 go into the finals and OS win, like they deserve it. They're the first seed for a reason, and we went out and gave them a fair shot, and we should be proud of that. So I think that's why the regular season's a little bit more pressured, at least for maybe personal performances or like individual performances, but. Playoffs is just good vibes, man. You get to go on stream. You get to have your games casted at maybe like a bit more of a serious level than regular season games, and it's just a lot of fun and a lot of vibes. So,
I respect that.
Yeah.
I well, I was going to relate like my experience from last season to this season, but or like to this answer. But I feel like last season, like we just kind of went into every game like hoping to win, and that was kind of that. I don't know if we were really paying attention to playoffs. I don't know if you were, Jordo, but I feel like we just kind of all of a sudden we just made it, and I was like, oh shit, like we're in, like that's great, you know. And then we started getting serious. Then we scrimmed for the first time against you guys, and because we knew we had to play against
Hey, sit
L7.
outside, sit outside C, sit outside C, or sit outside B.
Oh, don't even, bro. I was so mad about that.
That was the best read.
So yeah, I mean, for my experience at least, just because of how our regular season was last season, I'd say that the playoffs were a little bit more, I wouldn't say stressful, but like serious.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
But
Yeah.
it's also, you're now playing best of threes and a potential best of five. So there's also
Yeah.
that. So, you need to have a little bit more endurance too. But
More
Yeah.
endurance, but I also feel like there's more room for error in a best of three and a best of five, because like I feel like in these best of two scenarios or these two map scenarios, there holds so much more weight. Like whereas like you guys said last season, you had to win one map, right? So you go into that, and if you lose that first map, that second map might be a lot more pressure than say you go into quarterfinals and you lose map one. Okay, we have two chances to bring this back now, and I think that could be another reason why that I think playoffs it feels a little bit more organic and a little bit more relaxing than the normal season does.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that too. I was gonna kind of just build off Dan's point. I feel like our team definitely was a little bit more serious because of, I think, just having four new people
True.
to the league, like their first season. Obviously, you don't know what to expect, but I think for me personally, like my thought process going in, and I think this is just like the athlete in me was like, I'm coming in here to fucking win this thing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I hate losing. Nothing burns me up more than losing. Like, I mean, whenever I lost to you guys in the championship, like even though I didn't think I really gave a shit about the league, like
It hurts.
inside, I
Yeah.
I have had a vendetta against KC since February,
Whoa.
whatever, that
Whoa.
like
The
that I'm gonna finish.
backhand.
Yeah, that I want to be the one to knock you guys out of playoffs, like whether it be like round two or round one or whatever the case may be. And it could shape up like that potentially here,
It
which
could.
which would be cool. I mean, we have a really, uphill
Uphill
battle
battle.
we're fighting
Yeah.
here, but
Yeah.
I kind of going back to it though, I think like um we I think it was a lot more serious because of like just how new everybody was, but also like my thought process was being kind of like one of the new players, me and Overcome kind of being the carries of our team,
Mm.
like me on Senti. I was just going for hero plays just to try to like get in the head of L7, and like there was a couple times throughout the game like where I mean Overcome had like a Sheriff Ace, I think, or maybe that was against you guys potentially.
Yeah, maybe it's
Yeah.
against you guys
Yeah.
Like
potentially. Yeah.
I can't remember, but like I mean like my Sheriff play like with Dan, like where we had that clutch on Lotus, like where we kept thrifting each other back and forth, like that Sheriff play like was just one of those plays where like it's really hard to hit a clip like that, but when you do in a game like that, the pressure on the other team that's supposed to be the number one seed that's just been running through the season,
Yeah.
really similar record to what OS is right now. I mean, like, and everyone thought the same thing of L7, and then you go and play in playoffs, they overlook you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, they're watching you play in the grand finals instead of playing it themselves. And, shout out Liler again. Sorry to bring it up again, Liler, but until next year's podcast, you're the hate to be a dead horse, but yeah, no. I mean, I kind of after we lost to KC though, I literally just grabbed my headset, set it down gently, and then literally just went and laid on the floor
Yeah.
and just stared at the ceiling for like 10 minutes.
And that's how we
And
felt in season
I was like,
4.
shit.
Yeah, that's how we felt in season 4, because we were, dealing with the situation of needing a sub, and it was I can't remember who we were against. I think it actually might have been LG at the time. And I just remember like
W org.
I just remember I think that was the season they won it.
Season
Maybe.
3.
They run odd seasons, I think.
Oh, okay, so it might have been OS that season then, but like like you said, I just remembered leaving the lobby like immediately because I couldn't be asked. Like I was so dumbfounded at everything that was at what just happened, and like yeah. So even though I say that the playoffs is not as stressful, I definitely, like I said in the earlier parts of my my segment, saying like but playoff VK is a completely different animal because it'll be for the vibes, but once I'm in, I'm in. Like
Yeah.
there's no breaking me out of it, and then the only way that can break me out of it is a win or a loss, and the loss feels a lot worse than the win, obviously.
Right. I'll say this and then jump into the next question, but I mean, I remember losing and just like the call was dead silent, and I'm like sitting there, like hands on my head, just like, dude, just there, you're reflecting on rounds that could have gone your way,
Yeah.
and just all like the little things just come flooding through your head, and you're like, dude, like I want that back so bad, you know what I mean? But you
Yeah.
gotta fight for it. So
Yeah, we required too much hero ball, I think, to be consistently winning. I mean, like we had like an absurd amount of clutches like throughout the entire season. It's just not sustainable. Like
yeah,
regular season, it seemed like it was, and we're like, okay, it's still working. But then playoffs came, and like all of a sudden, those clutches
VK
get a
straight
little bit.
transfers and
Yeah, yeah, they just get a little bit. They just get a little bit tougher. Honestly, it's like a new added anxiety or pressure when those situations come on in the playoffs versus like regular season for sure.
Yeah.
yeah. So, do you have any tips for teams who are new to the postseason this season, or I guess just players in general? One
Yeah.
of the questions that I really wanted to hone in for you, are the speeches necessary to win? Because they seem pretty legendary.
Yeah, do you need to change
Um.
your name to the logo and or to the initials in front of the org, or is that just
Yes, that's
yeah?
exactly.
We need to know all the details.
So I really don't know how the speeches came about. I like because so I've been in since season one, and I kind of had like some imposter syndrome, like season one, season two, and even somewhere in season three. And then when I finally had an organization like KC come through, or a franchise like KC come through, and they say, "Listen, we are going to build the team around you. We saw how you performed in combines. We're gonna build the team around you. Let us know what you want, what you need to do, and we'll try to make it happen." And I'm like, yeah, for sure. And then I kind of just like felt at home with KC finally. Like I finally felt like, okay, this franchise is gonna fight for me. This organization is gonna fight for me. So I'm gonna fight for them back. And I will never forget. It was Legend, Legend, Karan, myself, Cider, and oh my goodness, they're gonna be so mad that I forget who this is. I'm so sorry. They went off to college. I hope you're doing
Didn't
well.
you start that with saying "I'll never forget"?
No, I'll never forget the situation.
You'll never forget everybody but that one person.
But I just remember the first match. I just said like a few words, and then I was like, "Oh, we're gonna lock in together at the same time for like team, team bonding stuff like that." And then it's stuck ever since. And then that's kind of like how the IGL role kind of started to play into fact too. Like we got streamed for the first time, and Sark asked us like, "Oh, who's the IGL?" And I didn't answer. Like I was off my computer, and I come back and it was like, "Oh, VK's IGL," and I'm like, "I am." It's like, okay, cool. So then that's when I kind of like honed in on the IGL thing, and really try to put a lot of the KC weight on my shoulders, not like skill wise, but just like trying to make sure that KC is successful and stuff like that, in and out of the game. So the speeches, I feel like they do work. Some of them are serious, some of them are super goofy, depending on the situation. And I mean, I've seen success for it, but yeah, the speeches definitely work. If you're looking for advice for new players coming into playoffs, my big thing is to avoid distraction, right? So even though this is a for fun league, this is still very highly competitive. And there's a study that was done. What I actually learned about this when I was in college. I was playing CS with my friends, and my best friend, who I showed CS to, ended up becoming so much better than me, so much better than me. And I was like, dude, you're making me mad. Why are you so much better than me? I showed you this game, like. And he said, "What do you do when you're dead?" And I said, I pick up my phone, I check my texts, I go on Twitter, stuff like that. And he goes, that's why. He goes, every time you pick up your phone, you're losing 10% of your focus and you can't get it back until the next time you reset. And I was like, oh. And so on match days, like I take my phone and I'll put it under my desk and I won't touch it. And just really locking in on playoffs and listening to calls and not dwelling on little mistakes is so important because we touched on this earlier. Every little mistake can cost you a whole entire round, and one entire round can cost you the entire game. So don't dwell on little mistakes and just learn from it and then move on to the next. And just go out and give it your all. I know that sounds cliche, but when you come in half, pardon my French, half-assed, or you come in like you're just trying to, play the game, like you're not gonna be successful. Like actually like give a shit, like you're in playoffs and other teams aren't. Be happy that you're there. You know what I mean? So
Don't
like
read
that.
apprentice cheer chat. Just ignore it. Because
yeah,
the
just
people
ignore it.
talking are the people that aren't even playing in the playoffs probably.
Exactly.
And haters stay mad,
Haters stay mad.
But kind of to end it off here, on the interview, kind of our last question. Obviously, we're all pros, so we just kind of bounce around all over the place and probably didn't even need the questions just because our conversation playing each other probably answers all of them.
Facts.
But this season, I think I already know your answer probably, but if you were to pick a winner, if it's not KC, if KC, gets knocked out by LG in
Pulls an
round
L7,
two,
first round exit.
you know, who are you picking to win it all? If you had to put all your money on someone, they have a gun to your head, you have to put all your money on somebody to win, who are you picking?
This is the question that I had an answer prepared for, and now I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Now I'm not sure. I would love to see LG take it. Obviously, that is like my biased opinion, as I would love to see LG make a run into playoffs, and
the people's org.
I agree. However, if LG is out of the equation, unfortunately, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if LG is out of the playoffs, I want to see High Tide go on and win it.
Ooh, I like
That'd
that
be cool.
answer.
I would love to see
like
High Tide, just because I think they are one of the most underrated franchises right now in Apprentice. They've been moving in silence a lot. Like looking at the standings, I was just pulling up. I believe they are only one map behind us. No, they're tied with us for first or for second, and it's only on RWP. So to have a franchise like KC and then have High Tide be right with us, I would love to see High Tide go on. I'm a very big underdog story, KC underdogs, underdog story. Like when we were seeing LG and OS, because I believe if like I said, I was an expert for a while, so I don't remember the Apprentice winners, but I believe it was LG OS, and then finally KC broke it. So I would like to see some variance in the champions, and I would love to see High Tide take it. I know they're all working their butts off over there, and I think they don't get a lot of credit. And I think
and they lost their duelist too, which was like, potentially the best fragger in the tier this year. And I think people kind of like discounted him instantly. I thought that the impact was going to be
playoffs.
No, he won't.
Oh, he's not?
No. But
they got Tawasi. It's okay.
Shout out One Ninja though.
Shout out One Ninja.
Great player, great person.
Thorn, dude, a pain in my ass though to play against. Pain in my ass.
Yeah,
so unpredictable. The other thing I want to say though, and I think this is another reason why High Tide is held in such high regard in my eyes. I want everybody in Apprentice right now to realize Duelist is not the most important role. Okay? And I think High Tide is showing that to a very, 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 very high caliber. We mentioned Tavasi, right? Whew. That human on Chamber is scary. It's very scary. That human with an op general is scary, right? And I think there's a lot of focus solely on duelist players because of the high frag counts, the high entry counts, the high, however. And I just think a lot of people need to realize that without certain supporting roles, that's where a lot of teams fail. It's not necessarily the duelist. I feel like I've been underperforming this season, and my team's still pulling out results. So it's obviously not a duelist issue. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to put that out there, and I think that's why I think High Tide is a very good pick for that.
Well, trust me, I'm a firm believer in the fact that duelist is not the most important role. I try to put Symphony on the map. I think Sentinel is a really important role that gets overlooked. And there's a lot of really good Sentinels this year in the league. There's like probably like 3, 4 that are like all like changing positions on the leaderboards consistently, like with like the major stat categories. So, and then initiators too. There's a lot of really good initiators this year. So I think last year there was like
I've been called with one of the best ones in the league right now. So, I mean
that's true.
Stop it.
but yeah, I think it's like I think last year was very duelist heavy. Like the top of the tier, the best players were the duelists, and I think people had that image washed in their brain. Royal.
I didn't say it.
You had Royal, Ray, VeeKay,
and there's a lot of good duelists though.
Yeah, Queasy even.
Shout out Queasy, bro! Oh my goodness.
So there was a lot of really good duelists that
Overcome.
I think.
Sorry.
Overcome. Yeah, Overcome. People wrote him out too, like throughout the entire year too, and the guy was just on top of the kills leaderboard, just consistently creeping his way up. So I think it's just one of those things where I think last year, like it still has like kind of like the burnt image that the duelist is like the key player. And granted, probably they're some of the most mechanically gifted, but like quite a few teams I can think of, like their most mechanically gifted player isn't the duelist on their team this year in Apprentice tier.
Right.
And probably for a lot of the tiers, really, other than Prospect, your best player is probably the duelist. I mean, that's just kind of how it is down there, I feel like. But yeah, no.
Listen, I'm only good for bullet and dash for 1 kill, whereas Sentinels and controllers are good for like 3 and 4. Okay, so
you just gotta dig your heels in, Get you set in your get 1 corner and you get 3.
There you go. And then you get 3, yeah.
Triple collat.
Or just wait for VeeKay to push out B. It's fine.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
That was the best read of all. That was probably the best VeeKay read in history.
I was like, I know there's gonna be one in that corner, and then I see the whole entire LG team, and I'm like,
we need to release
like the boys meme. You know what I mean? It was that meme.
We need to release the VOD of that if we still have it. I'll have to look. It was so good. I was telling everybody, I was like, scoot over to the side so we can't see you because he's gonna clear my corner, and then you were starting to clear my corner, and I said swing, and then you were just there. And I was like, no way.
So scary. It was so scary.
If you want a first-hand peek at what we're referring to, be sure to check out the VDC YouTube channel. What it sounds like to be in the grand finals video, it's a banger.
Yeah. So VeeKay, it's always a pleasure talking with you, playing games against you, playing with you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, man.
Tonight, I know it's getting later, so thank you for giving us some of your time on a Friday evening.
Yeah, of course.
And we're really appreciative of it. And thank you for the great insight to what it's like to be a champion. Hopefully next year we'll bring you onto the podcast to interview us.
Back-to-back champion?
That could happen too.
We're going to be bringing on all of the champions this season onto the podcast. So you might just get the
second go at it.
Might double dip,
Yeah. Well, before we get fully outroed, I just want to say you two have been doing an amazing job spearheading the podcast. All right, it's been a very entertaining listen every time. I do listen to them at work when I probably shouldn't be, but very, very. I like the creativity you guys are bringing to the table. Shout out VDC Media. VDC Media is what makes a lot of this possible. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, but we have a lot of hardworking people that might not get their names out there because they're just they're just doing their job and then calling it a day. Which is without them, like we wouldn't be us. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to VDC Media, everybody involved, and Apprentice, listen, postseason's coming up. KC on top, baby. Let's go. Let's get it.
Fuck the
You heard it
underdog.
there. Yeah, we're the overdogs now.
Overdogs.
The overlords. But yeah, thank you again, man.
Yeah.
Happy to have you on. But yeah. Up next, we have an interview with Blind from Expert Tier, former winner from last season. We will see you in a moment.
See you then. Welcome back, everyone. Sorry for the cuts. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces, as you can see. I'm shaven, and Paco's still rocking the Taco Bell hat. So you already know this is day 2 of the recording. This is a long one. Yeah, peep the tape and the Taco Bell. The guy's a warrior. This is what we go through for the pod. But we have another exciting guest to kind of top off our Mount Rushmore of guests this podcast. Another former champion from the expert tier and potential, maybe 2-time champion potentially here, as we kind of touched on earlier in the podcast, with an MF roster that's really dynamic. They picked up Stampy, and I think they have a pretty good shot, of maybe potentially winning another championship here. So without further ado, I'll welcome another great guest, MF Blind. Blind, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you guys for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I was really wanting, I actually kind of really wanted to get interviewed at some point because it was this thing really like interested me. I've been watching like all the episodes, and I genuinely think it's great what you guys have been doing here. I'm a really big fan of it because I think it's just good to have something like this for people that aren't even in the league to see, and if that can draw them into the league.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, it's always good to hear the feedback.
Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, it's always good to hear from the public on, especially in a different tier. I think we hear from it apprentice tier quite a bit, just because obviously Paco and I being an apprentice tier, I feel like our friends in apprentice tier kind of say that, but it's good to hear now from almost all the tiers. I think really we've heard some good words and feedback, and we appreciate the kind words. Kind of now into the juicy details of hearing from the expert champion, especially going into like last season in the playoffs. Like, were you expecting that outcome of coming out with a trophy, or were you more so on the fence about your team? Like, what were your thoughts going into the season and into playoffs? Like, what was your mindset going in? Were you expecting the trophy? Not expecting the trophy?
So when we were going into at least I'm gonna start with the season, if that's okay. Just like going into the start of the season, it was my first season as a player. One of the first things I've realized when I got drafted to MF, I was looking over the franchise like note that Ace had put out when I was just like scrolling through. Like I was interested in learning about the team that drafted me. I saw that they, in the message, he said they had not had a lot of success, and then one of the first things I was told is that they had the worst winning percentage in VDC history. Through being named AE, and then yes,
Another plug.
I actually can't wait to see that. I can't wait.
That's like 3 or 4 this episode.
I actually can't wait to see that, but because I like learning about things that have happened in the past that I wasn't obviously here for, because I came in right before Combines in that season. So I came in, I didn't really know anybody. I'd made a couple friends just through playing Combines and stuff, but I got drafted to a team I'd never played a single Combine with other than that is Cap. It was my first, I played with him a couple times throughout Combines, played against him. I recognized his username, so I was like, okay, great. I somewhat know somebody on this team, but I didn't know anybody. And then as we started getting to like the preseason, when the season started, we didn't have one of our draft picks. He just was nowhere to be found.
That's so crazy.
And then, so we had a roster of me, Genome, that is Cap, Mikey, Z, and Silence at that time, and then a draft pick that we just literally could not find, named Heisey. And I believe it was around the second preseason game. He joined the Discord, everything got sorted out, and he was allowed to play in the league. And because of MMR, we wouldn't have been able to have that original 5 people we had on the roster, so Silence ended up going on that inactive reserve. So I thought Silence was an incredible player, just from playing with her in in that one preseason game that I got to. And I was like, okay, so this random guy is just gonna play with us, and we're gonna see what happens. But as I got to know that roster, even over those only like 2 preseason days, I realized just how insanely talented those guys were, and how well we like kind of meshed together. And we went into the season going 1-1 against the team we ended up eventually playing in the grand finals in double taps. It was a insane series. The second game went 30 rounds, and in their win. But I think that's when I realized this team was incredible, but we had a little bit of flaws here and there. But as the season went on, after I believe the like 3rd or 4th match day, I just had this like feeling we were going to win it all. I just felt like just because of how talented that roster was, like as we just kept progressing and playing more together, we had a lot of mistakes throughout the season, like just throughout the regular season of busting heads and bickering and stuff. But we ended up meshing really well together by the end, and then just going into playoffs, I had no doubt in my mind that we would not be the champions of the tier. I fully thought that if we lost, it would be devastating, because we had some phenomenal seasons with we ended up having 3 players in the MVP race to end the season.
Genome won.
Yeah, Genome won, but Heisey and Mikey were also in there. I was like a middling duelist on that team. I just got carried and shit, so you know. But I actually told the team going into playoffs that if we lost in the playoffs at all, like not a map, but like if we lost one of the series, that I wanted a video of everybody running laps.
That's sick. Like those are the kind of stories that I
it.
love hearing from these interviews, because like it's like stuff that you'd never think, to hear.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, guys, if we lose, I want videos of us running like 5-10 laps. I'll make them too. Like, we don't got to show our face or anything, but we're running laps if we lose. There's no reason. We knew we were the best team, and there was no doubt in my mind that we would win. But if we lost, I was not going to be too happy, because I felt like that team just meshed so incredibly well.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That is a cool story in terms of everybody meshing, and I kind of think about like our team last season, where we never scrimmed, we didn't practice, like nothing all season. We just like got thrown together. We didn't even technically play as a whole 5 during the entire preseason, because I got picked up at like the very end of preseason, or traded, I guess.
Yeah.
So we just like kind of jumped in and just ended up meshing really well. And then, grand finals came around and it just came tumbling down. But, we made playoffs and made grand finals, which was cool. And it was like 4 rookies in Uklar. So it was like that kind of feeling of, okay, like we're meshing. This is a cool team. I've heard a couple of instances of that, and I think when I was talking to Spence when we were doing the interview for History of the Orgs, it was Legend, because he was the original GM of L7. I think one of their mythic rosters in like season 1 or 2 ended up like competing in tier 3 or tier 2,
Ooh.
something like that, because they just
Jesus.
enjoyed playing with each other. So they just kept playing with each other and tried to, make a team out of it. So
Yeah.
those kind of stories are really, really cool.
Um,
But you said, you kind of expected it to win. Was there like a sigh of relief when you finally did? Like, kind of walk me through the feeling of winning that final round.
So going into those matchups with TT, we realized they would have um a sub throughout the entire thing, replacing K10, who's a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
But we had at least two people that had to get up very early in the morning. We couldn't delay more because of just how long those like best of fives go. Even though we won 3-0, it would have been hell. But as we were going down to the final round, I believe it was Lotus. It might have been Sunset, because those maps kind of blended in my head. Not like not like playing them. I'm talking like the actual maps themselves. Just kind of, I have an issue with that for some reason. But as we played that into that final round, and then we won, we instantly second the like stream ended, or like the stream had us winning. We had our dedicated sixth woman, even though not really, but she subbed for us a lot. Blossom, my goat, my favorite apprentice player. Sorry to everybody else that I like an apprentice, but Blossom, my goat. And then Ace joined, and I believe Cryo joined for a bit, and Devilish joined as well. And we just had a bunch of people in call, and it was so like adrenaline pumping. I was supposed to get up early that next morning, and I really had to, but like the adrenaline from that win was just rushing through my body, and I ended up staying up until like 4 in the morning that night when I had to get up at like 8 or 9, because I was like, I just won in this like league I just joined. I'm like, that's amazing. We ended the fun thing about our roster is we had 3 rookies, and then Mikey, I believe, hadn't played since season 1 or 2, and then Cap had been in the league since season 2, but he had not really found much like playoff success. So we kind of came in not really knowing what it was, and then like you guys said earlier, you guys didn't really scrim. Yeah, we didn't. We scrimmed twice throughout the entire season. Once was against a team of all Ascendants and Immortals, and we got rolled. And then the other one, I slept through. So our GM Ace came in, and they stomped. I believe it was against VTX Apprentice last season that we played against, because they wanted to scrim us, and we were like, okay. But I ended up sleeping through it. But Ace came in, I believe, and played Duelist, and filled my role pretty well, which might have shown how good that supporting cast was. But but it was against an Apprentice team, to be fair. But I mean, Apprentice has some very good rosters. I mean, so some of y'all are terrifying. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, it was very just like adrenaline filling, and just it felt amazing to win. No matter how much this league's for fun, I want to win.
Oh,
you know?
I think a lot of people feel that same way. And Jordan, I'll let you talk here in a sec, but in another league that shall not be named, even though I already said it in this podcast, I joined like halfway through season 2, and my team ended up winning the grand finals. I also had, I mean, it was like we played on a Sunday or a Monday, and it was a 6-hour set, 5 maps, and during one of them there was like in 45-minute tech pause essentially, and it was a mess. But we finished at like 3, and I mean, obviously, like you said, the adrenaline rush, crazy. But then it was streamed, so then I went in bed, rewatched the entire stream on like 1.5x speed, and it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I went to sleep, had like a 9 a.m. Obviously didn't go to that. So I know exactly how you feel, man.
I rewatched the VOD for the thing like just throughout the night as I'm just in call with people looking back at like the highlights of it. and we were just like rewatching it just to be like, yeah, we just won. It's
crazy
genuinely the
feeling.
best feeling. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I unfortunately have had the pleasure of only playing one season in the VDC, but I was on the other end of that, and I think the adrenaline dump that you get from losing just
It's
crushes you
crazy.
to the point where you just like can't sleep either because you're just like thinking about all the little mistakes that you
Hmm.
make, your team made that cost you the series. But yeah, I can definitely tell you that there's definitely adrenaline dump on both sides and a lack of sleep, but they're for different reasons, and I'd prefer the other one. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of going, looking forward to, this current season that you're in. Right now, you're currently set to make playoffs, and in your mind, I can already probably tell you what your answer is because I think you have the mentality that most people do that find their way to championship games. Is do you think that you guys have the capability of going back to back and being one of only two other teams to have done it? There's a potential for obviously KC to do it again this year and Apprentice tier, but um, do you think that you guys have a good shot at it?
100%. I fully believe that we are a phenomenal roster. So this roster is almost completely different from what we had last season. Mikey Z ended up becoming an RFA. He got moved up to Mythic. Genome and Heisey both ended up playing for our Mythic team because they also got moved up. And then it was just me and Cap left down here, an expert in the lowly depths. But we going into the off season eventually, Ace asked me if I want to become his AGM, and he when I got asked that, I was like, okay, so I have to build this roster basically because that's what basically was happening. Me, Ace, and Cryo each basically took one of our tiers. And I was like, okay, I have to build this roster, but I have to draft people I'm playing with. So I have to know I like these people from playing with them, because if I don't, this is gonna suck. Basically, becoming a full new roster is insane. But me and Cap have phenomenal chemistry together when we're playing together. Because I've played about 61 maps of VDC so far, and 57 of them have been with Cap. And the first two or first four that I have not played with him happened these like past 2 weeks, I believe, or 2 match days, I believe, and or maybe like a match day before. I don't know the exact timeline of it, but I just knew we had to find people that meshed with how we played, and I went into the season maybe thinking I would change roles depending on who I drafted, but as we've kind of just like played together. We've had a decent like a little bit of roster shakeup here, but which is just how strong I believe this roster is at this point, and how well we've been able to build chemistry together through the past almost 2 months since the season started, almost. I believe. I think we have built phenomenal chemistry that is good enough to get us to going back to back. I fully believe in us to go back to back. There is not a single doubt in my mind that as long as we are thinking straight and we're here mentally, I highly doubt we will lose. Even with Cap ending up having to go on inactive reserve for us, and us having to bring in Stampy, who I think is going to be phenomenal, by the way. I'm just saying that guy is a dog at the game, so I'm very happy that I get to play with him in these upcoming match days, and I very well hope we can win again, because it would be my second trophy, and it would also be Motion's second trophy, who won in, I believe, season 4. I'm pretty sure, but I don't know fully. But
Gotcha.
it just means a lot for us to go back to back, and we really want to do that. So I think we are fully capable of going back to back and keeping this winning culture going here in MF Expert.
No, that's
If you
super
lose,
cool.
would you run laps again?
Yes.
I like that. I like that.
I'll post it. I'll post it.
We'll
I'll
put it
go
on
out
the
and run some
podcast.
laps.
We'll shout it out on the
Yeah, we'll
podcast if you...
ending clip behind the Patreon paywall.
The
Watch Juan
VDC,
run
the
laps.
VDC shorts can already see it
Hey,
if you
don't
don't.
worry, it's not happening.
So obviously, playoffs, regular season, completely different. I mean, you're playing a set versus just 2 maps. In your eyes, is there a difference between that kind of atmosphere or, the pressure, stress that comes along with it? Or I guess, do you find it easier, the same?
I think there is a definite way you can tell that going into like playoffs, there is a lot higher tension because there's not going to be, if you lose, there's not going to be another match day for you to
Right.
play because it's that single elimination format. But if you lose today, if you don't play your best, your season's done. And I think that's a big part of what drove us to play better last season, and I think that's going to be a big factor of what happens this season for us. Like regular season, obviously there's a bit of stress because you want to win, you want to keep yourself in the playoffs, you want to keep yourself up there and just try to get a higher seed because obviously now with the expert being a bigger tier, there's bye weeks and even other tiers. In Apprentice there's a bye week and then Mythic and Prospect don't, but still having that higher seed means a better matchup for you, favorably at least. And I think the main difference I think is just that fear of if you lose you're done. Your season's over. Like you're gonna have to wait to play again. I think that's the primary thing that really strikes me, especially when I was playing those games, because I had a lot of stress just being the main entry and such, and just being like, I need to play well for this team, for us to have even more success than we already had.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, no, I agree.
And you've kind of touched on some of this a little bit, but kind of, from the new player perspective or somebody that's just never made playoffs before, do you have any tips for those new players, teams that are new to the playoffs, or any of that sorts, or just players in any tier really? Like, do you have any tips like about the postseason, um, from your experience with like dealing with like the stress and anxiety, kind of your mindset? Do you change your mindset, or do you just keep the same mindset that got you there? Do you have any tips that would be insightful for any of those players that are kind of, anxious about the prospects of playoffs and
Yeah, so just how you have to hold yourself to the same regard as you have been holding yourself. Is a big thing for me. I have to, if I'm not thinking I'm the best player or I'm better than whoever I'm fighting against or whoever I'm swinging or whoever, just whatever. If I'm not thinking I'm the best player, it is going to harm me more. Yeah, you have to have confidence in this game because I think it just means so much because just not having that fear will make your aim smoother. You'll be able to swing somebody and be like, yeah, I'm going to win this fight. And that's a big factor for me, especially because I off a lot. For anybody that ops a lot, having confidence with that gun is huge because you need to, because I know people that play very passive with it. I think the gun should be used. I have a very high tendency to jump peek things with it. Just jump out into the open and pray that I win the fight. But just having the confidence to do that's just a huge thing. So I think confidence is the number one thing. But if you're feeling like anxious, if you're feeling like you're not going to play your best, I would recommend before the match not playing other than maybe a small warm-up before the game and try to do anything else. Try to do something else you enjoy. Because usually I have a tendency to go out and play basketball before I go. I play matches because it is something that very well calms me. I also have gotten into the routine of sometimes I end up showering before matches just so I can like revitalize my body just so it like shocks me back awake if needed. Ice cold showers, great for waking you up if you really need something to kickstart you going into the playoffs. But
I have to take you up on some of these.
Yeah, I will say for me, like just being kind of like in a weird role and kind of being the carry of my team at the current state. Um, kind of going back to what you're saying of just playing your game and trusting it and having confidence in it. Like for me, like I put myself into some pretty crazy situations being Sentinel, like where I'm
Yeah.
lurking behind them and there'll be three people that'll pop up on the mini map and somehow I end up the only man standing in those situations and Paco, you'll hear him react in the VODs when you watch him back, like, how did you, what? Um, and just like, I think your team having confidence in the
Yeah.
players that
Yeah.
do things like that too goes a long way for player confidence because I know if I were doing those things and my team was trying to put a leash on me, I wouldn't perform the way I perform.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
any like duelist or whomever that's usually in those situations. So I do think confidence is like the biggest driving factor of like the teams that you see win.
Yeah. I think having confidence in your teammates is also a just huge thing. Like you kind of touched on there. I always go in rounds and with the confidence that my teammates could carry me through that round if needed. If I make a mistake, I try not to make those mistakes,
That's
obviously. But
so
if
underrated.
if I do, I need to be able to trust my teammates. I will
Yeah.
not play with people I don't trust because I need to. I whenever I'm playing with somebody, I need to trust that they could get 5 this round, and I believe everybody on my roster could do that at any given scenario. I think just trusting your teammates might genuinely go above trusting yourself in some scenarios because it is a team game at the end of the day. One person can't win it all. I'm just gonna be fully honest. I sometimes here and there lack a bit of confidence in myself, but whenever that is usually happening, I have somebody on my team going crazy. Like Jaded dropping 32 the other day to win us a game. Motions having a like 5-game streak of match MVPs, and then Katie just with phenomenal calls, and then Cap with just getting like 3Ks here, there, everywhere with his shotguns. It just genuinely feels phenomenal to play with people that you can trust because
Yeah.
if as long as you trust these people, you can go all the way. If you know your teammates are good, if you know how to play around your teammates, like being able to play with and around your teammates is the easiest way to win.
Yeah.
I think if you trust the people you're playing with, you're gonna win. As long as you guys obviously have the talent to, shoot back at the other players, but it's like a just a full thing because at the end of the day, it will always be a team game. There's no doubt that this game cannot be won by like single people. Obviously, if you have a very special gaming chair, you might be able to win a little more than some other people, but it's just this thing where I personally lack confidence sometimes, and I will never rank myself as this tier's best duelist. And that has and just me losing to other duelists in like fights or something, it also does take an impact on my mental. But then I just got to remember, maybe I'm not the better duelist, maybe I'm not the better player, but if I pull out an op, I'm most likely gonna win that fight. Because that's my main thing for confidence. It's that gun.
Yeah.
I'm a crutch. It's I think MF has another crutch somewhere down in Apprentice that might crush the op just a little bit. My goat Royal, love that guy.
Yeah, you guys sound eerily similar, except you're humble.
Yeah, you're the humble royal. Who would have thought there was one floating
I mean,
around?
so sometimes I'm a little less humble, but it happens
Hey man, you
sometimes. I
gotta be though.
gotta.
Yeah.
The other
Gotta
day,
show that confidence sometimes though,
yeah,
but
the when I played against who, in my opinion, is the second best up in the tier in number one Jag. He after our matchup, he said that in quotes from him is at MF Blind is nutty with an op. Everyone be careful. Lol. I won't say his op is better, but he damn sure is just as good as me. I took that and I'm like, yeah, because I might have diffed him just a little bit with it, and
Dude,
I'm taking it
I
just
know
to boost
exactly how you feel, man.
it.
Not with the op though. I have 13 op kills.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that gun. It's what I used to do in Counter-Strike. So
Oh, fair enough.
yeah.
Kind of going back to this, obviously, you have yourself winning it all, but if MF gets knocked out and you have to run your laps, what team in the tier is bringing home the trophy if you don't?
Uh, it's very rough because I think there are, depending on the day, genuinely, I think anybody, if we somehow by the grace of God get knocked out, um, just yeah, be a little cocky here and there, but I genuinely believe it's anybody's game because recently, I mean, I don't even know who's fully gonna make playoffs at this point because of how just like different the like tier is with
Yeah.
like at the like 6th seed, because I believe if KC drops a bunch of games, OS could get in, PN could get in, VTX could get in, PA could get in. It really just depends on how matchups play out. But I think that like on a good day, KC under comebacks and the rest of that roster could
Yeah.
easily beat any of the top teams. I think double taps with their pickups of Durellium and Terror, who this is like an eerily similar season to last season because I think it's very similar to him getting picked up like halfway through the year and just dominating and getting his team back up into playoffs. Because I think the same exact thing happened with LG. I'm pretty sure. I'm 95% sure he was on LG last season.
I don't actually remember.
Because it was that roster
I
was
think he
jaded.
was.
Yeah, no, because that roster was jaded, Tear. Oh my god. I had all the rosters from last season memorized, and now they're all gone. I don't know what happened. But I think what they're doing at Double Taps is phenomenal, but I can't root for them ever if we get knocked out because we beat them last season, and I gotta have my personal
Oh, yeah.
bias against that team.
I feel the same way about KC.
I actually have gotten to be somewhat of like friends with people from that roster, or at least talk to them and be like, hey, obviously that roster happened, finals happened, and I like you all outside of the league and stuff. But it's very nice. I think L7 genuinely had a really good shot. I think they still do, but I would not be surprised if they kind of simmered out early on in the playoffs. But I think it's going to come down to no matter what. If we get knocked out, it's going to be LG or High Tide, and
I like the answer.
there's nothing about it. I mean, just what High Tide's been able to do with what the roster they had last season. Last season, they were multiple maps out of the playoffs. And I personally, when going into the season, I had them ranked around like middle of the pack at best. Right now, they're the number 2 seed. They're 1 win up on us. They're 21-9. We were 3-1 against them this season. However, that team is incredible. I mean, just how great Wumbo is as a duelist.
Yeah.
How great Sammy is at controller, and then Wumbo's also flexing to like initiator and stuff a bit because of somebody else on that team named Creed, who, in my opinion, is probably going to be the league MVP.
Yeah.
He's insane. We played against him on Icebox. He dropped 30 something, and I was kind of just sat there awestruck for a little bit after that because I was like, "There's no way this guy just rolled through our team basically." And that's when I realized that roster is going to be phenomenal. And then Solar, phenomenal player as well. And so is Jabub. I mean, that team is very well rounded. I think on any given night they could just dominate anybody. They hit a little bit of a rough patch as they were like pretty solidly cemented as number 1 for a while. But I think they could easily win the tier. Obviously, if we get knocked out.
Right.
But and then LG. they started as like the worst team in the tier through the first certain amount of weeks. This is scarily eerie, or scarily like last season when they picked up Tear, but in this set, it's them picking up Flurk, who has been insane from what I've seen and played against. He has been an incredible player, and I will fully give him his due as a phenomenal duelist in my tier. I mean, I love Trisente, who he replaced. Trisente, my goat. Love that guy. But what he's been able to do with that team is insane, because they were 1-5 at some point, like then 3-7. And then since he's been there, they are now 21-9. I believe they've dropped very limited maps with him.
Yeah.
We've won them both times. We actually played him, I think, one of the first matches he was on that team. We won against them both times. And I mean, just wow. And then obviously I'll give credit to Jag as a phenomenal chamber player, and with his AWP, he is a phenomenal player, even though he's ancient.
Yeah.
Taking away from the younger guys here. But and then Zoro, I believe Jaded has a little bit of a slight bit of beef with him, as he took over his spot on LG, and he's the reason they cut him for Zoro. And I believe that's a slight vendetta, and that's another part why he's not a big fan of LG. But I didn't say that, don't worry. But I genuinely think that roster, that LG roster, is it's either going to be High Tide or LG. No matter what, if we don't win it, it's going to be one of those two. And I'm not scared of playing them in the playoffs, but I genuinely believe they could take it from us. But I didn't even mention how valuable Saints is for his MMR. That guy was not doing phenomenal last season. He was one of the worst players in the tier, and I love Saints, but he has been great since then as well. He's been playing phenomenal. And then Mini, phenomenal guy. Love playing with him, talking to him, and not playing against him, obviously. But yeah, he's a great guy as well. I think I personally have LG winning if we don't, but High Tide easily could just take that in a second.
Yeah. No, Expert, there's some pretty solid rosters out there, so yeah, I mean, you guys definitely have some crazy potential too. So if you don't take it down and LG does instead, I look forward to watching the laps. But but yeah, other than that, that's all the questions we got. So thank you for coming on the pod. It's been an absolute blast talking to you. Even though it's like 2:20 in the morning, you're still like super down to do this. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing going on right now, so it's all good.
But yeah, so coming up, we have predicting. Thank you. We're predicting who's going to win every single tier, and going from the people who, in Prospect and Mythic, there's only two. So who's going to be in first and second place, and then for the remaining two tiers, 1st through 6th, predicted. So in a short break, we'll see you then.
Have a great night, y'all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.